Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. With us today, once again, is Chandler Rome. Since the Cubs and Houston Astros seem to just, be in love with each other and can't get enough of making moves. Chandler is our Astros beat writer. I didn't say that. Astros beat writer over at The Athletic. Patrick and I cover the Cubs for The Athletic. This is yet another move between the Cubs and Astros. Chandler, obviously, it's a big one for the Cubs. They needed a back-end reliever, an experienced reliever. Just tell us a little bit about Pressly. I've been hearing a lot lately now about his leadership, and I'm really curious about that. Just tell us about him as a person, what he did in that clubhouse that kind of set things apart for him.
Yeah, he epitomizes to me just the veteran. He is the epitome of a seasoned vet. Like, just shows up to work every day, does his stuff, very rarely seeks the spotlight. Very rarely. I mean, he'll give you time for interviews if you ask for it, but is not going to be the guy that's front and center, does not want his, face or voice or much out there publicly as team spokesman sort of thing, but is certainly within the clubhouse, within the Astros clubhouse, revered. And that really only manifested itself within the last year and a half. This past year, he was one of the main reasons why they survived that 12-24 start. I mean, he was kind of a sounding board. He was, I can remember during that stretch, I think there was actually one time in Kansas City and there was another time at home. Like, I walked in a post-game clubhouse after a loss and there were about 5 or 6 young pitchers and young players just kind of gathered around Pressly's locker. And they were just, I don't know if it was a come to Jesus, but it was kind of just more of a debrief, kind of just just talking through a start that I don't think any of them could have ever envisioned. And then, I wrote about this a little bit, but, Hunter Brown, young starter for the Astros, had one of the worst starts in Major League history in Kansas City last April. I believe he gave up 9 runs and 13 hits in 2/3 of an inning. That was a getaway day game. They were on the plane back from Kansas City to Houston, and Pressly made it a point to go sit with Hunter. They talked about just kind of how to come back from this. How do you put this behind you? And look, Ryan Pressly can speak from experience. This is a guy that was DFA'd. He was a Rule 5 pick. He got optioned pretty close to right before he got traded to the Astros. So this is not a guy that has come by success easily. He's had to go through it in the big leagues. So he's got a lot of wealth of knowledge there. And, he shared that with Hunter, shared that, it'll get better. It can't get any worse after you give up 9 runs and 13 hits in 2/3 of an inning. But, that helped catalyze Hunter Brown's turnaround last year. Hunter still talks about that conversation in part. So you're getting a good pitcher. I'm not going to sit here and say he's as elite as he once was. I think he's better than Astros fans give him credit for. I think he's better than maybe the stats show. But along with that, you're getting the epitome of a veteran, the epitome of a veteran leader, but a guy that does it in a different way. You're not going to hear him rah-rah. You're not going to hear him yell. He's not going to be the one to stand up in a team meeting, but just leads by example, leads by just his experience.
Chandler, it's interesting you say that, because I think back to this Cubs team the last 2 years, and what's done them in is the 4-game losing streak, bad week becomes 2 bad months that totally sink their season. And I'm curious what Pressly can bring. How much do you think he has left in the tank? And, looking back on it, how much did the Josh Hader situation weigh on him? If they don't make that impulse move, maybe is his season slightly worse than the year before, but still, all-star caliber, and we're not really having this conversation.
Yeah, with the caveat that relievers are the most volatile people in baseball. I talked about this on Crush City yesterday, but smart teams don't invest long-term money in their bullpens. Just because of the nature of volatility, the nature of relievers and how they vary from year to year, it's tough to, say this. It's tough to speak with any like absolutes about any reliever, minus like maybe 2 or 3 guys. I mean, heck, look at Josh Hader last year. I mean, the Astros thought they were getting a guy that, if they took a 1-run lead in the 9th inning, he was shutting the door. Josh Hader was good last year, but he was not anywhere near this elite. I mean, I think he blew 7 saves, like gave up more homers last year than he had given up, I think, in the last 3 years combined. So, I mean, the position is volatile. To the Hader point, everyone with the Astros last year, they all said the right, like Presley said the right thing. Joe Espada, Dana Brown, they said the right stuff. But make no mistake, there were some hurt feelings, and I understand that. And when I say this, I don't want this to sound like Josh Hader and Ryan Presley didn't like each other. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Their kids are around the same age. They hung out off the field together. Those 2 guys are actually pretty tight. But it's just more of like I think it's human nature. Like Ryan Presley got demoted for no reason. Like he was fine in 2023. He was pitched very well, did nothing on the field to earn a demotion. The Astros wanted to build a big, 3-headed monster at the back end of their bullpen, so they got it done. They kept him involved. They kept Presley involved a little bit in the Hader negotiations, but it's not as if they sought his approval. It was they called him and were like, "Hey, we're probably going to do this. We just wanted to let you know before it comes out on Twitter." So again, everyone said the right things, but it was tough for him. Joe Espada basically said that at the winter meetings this year, that it took him a while to adjust to that setup role. And I think it left a bad taste in Presley's mouth just for kind of what he had done for the organization. I mean, and look, baseball's a cruel business. Like it's a very rarely, unless you're Jose Altuve, like very rarely do you get like, you've done this for the franchise, so we're going to like defer to you. Like it's a tough business in that way, but I think there was part of Presley that thought, he had been, maybe the second best reliever this franchise has ever seen, behind Billy Wagner, who just got into the Hall of Fame. Like, and to demote him like that, I think it hurt a little bit. And I think he wanted an opportunity to close. I'm not sitting here saying that putting him back in the closer's role is going to get him back to a sub-3 ERA with 12 Ks per 9, but it's a role he's more comfortable with. As far as how much does he have in the tank, I don't think he was that bad last year. Like everyone wants to talk about, everyone wants to look, oh, he's declining and look at his numbers. I mean, he had a 3.10 FIP with a 3.5 ERA. He saw it a 1.14 ERA plus. Like this is still a really good reliever.
Right.
Is he Edwin Diaz? Is he Josh Hader? Is he like that ilk? Probably not. But I think the one thing about Presley, and I talked about this yesterday when we were on Crush City, was the thing that fans are going to have, the thing that Astros fans maybe had trouble with. He doesn't throw 100. He doesn't have that one aesthetically pleasing, like wicked pitch that's like going to end up on Pitching Ninja a bunch, or like he doesn't do it with like palpable dominance. Like he's not Ben Joyce going out there throwing 105. He's not, other guys that have these like crazy breaking balls and things. His breaking balls are really good, but like he's going to be 93 to 95, maybe touch 96. He's going to rely on both of his breaking balls. It's not this dominant, like, oh my goodness, when this guy comes in, like you're going to see like 102. Like it's not that, but
right.
He misses enough bats. He didn't miss bats last year. That was his biggest problem. Like he struggled to miss bats. He got some poor batted ball luck as a result. The walk rate ticked up a little bit. But the couple things I will say about him, he takes the ball. He will pitch 3 days in a row if you need him. He's a gamer, very tough. Has been on the IL a couple times, just with a little bit of nagging stuff, but nothing that is a concern. But I think he's still a very good reliever. Is he as good as maybe he was in 2019, 2021? No, but he's also going to be 36 years old. So
right.
I think I think he's maybe been unfairly miscast as like on a gradual decline, like on a steep decline, but like I think he's still a really, really good reliever, and he can close for a contending team.
Newsflash, FT fam, America's #1 meal kit has a new offer for you. But first, Kratz, tell us why we love HelloFresh.
Figuring out dinner is so much easier now. I go online and pick from 50 recipes each week. They pre-portion the ingredients and then ship them right to your doorstep. Now that's the service we all deserve at an affordable price.
Don't forget about those new ready-made meals that go from fridge to fork in just 3 minutes. It's the same high-quality ingredients and restaurant-worthy flavor you always get from HelloFresh, just with none of the work.
We love that. If you're looking to fit a specific lifestyle, HelloFresh features preferences like fit and wholesome, or my personal favorite, quick and easy. This week, I'm crushing a sizzling shrimp bowl with roasted broccoli and spicy mayo, plus a dreamy mustard apricot chicken dish with roasted potatoes and green beans.
Get up to 10 free meals and a free high-protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/FT10FM. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
Yeah, and I think there's a few things here. The Cubs really respect the leadership angle. They've looked for that because they've lacked it in years past. And I think fans hear that and immediately think of Hector Neris and the season he had last year. They see the velocity decline. They see Houston, and they immediately go to Neris. They're not the same type of pitcher. Like Neris needed that fastball desperately to make the splitter work. Presley has these two really good breaking balls that the Cubs in all likelihood will have him use more of that. And they hope to tease a little bit more velocity out of him. I really think they like having that veteran. Go look at their past, like when they've had good bullpens, David Robertson, Michael Givens. Yes, Neris last year stood up and did a lot of things in the clubhouse. He was a guy that I saw him get on relievers that didn't know how to, go through the day and work on things, the day-to-day routine that it takes to be a successful reliever. So while he didn't maybe have the positive impact they wanted on the field, he was a positive impact in the clubhouse. Obviously you hope Presley is both. Like that's what the Cubs are hoping, and I think that's what the expectation is. And you kind of touched on what I was thinking. Like this velocity drop, I think people see and expect him. He's going to it's going to crush his career that he's done. It just doesn't seem like that's the case. It just doesn't seem like he's that type of pitcher. That yes, it's a drop in velocity, and the effectiveness is not what you said, 21, 22. But he's clearly a very good pitcher. I just don't see how. I think it's so easy, and I know I'm probably looking too much on Twitter and seeing fans complaining, and I shouldn't assume that all fans are like this. I think most fans hopefully understand that this is a positive move in all likelihood. But I think what you said at the beginning about like relievers are volatile. We don't know what they're going to be. Like you mentioned Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz had like a 2-month stretch where he stunk last year and lost the closer's job, and he's one of the most dominant forces in the game. So it is a crapshoot, and I think that's part of the reason why Jed won't go out and spend that much money on relievers, although I'm still a little shocked that they offered what they did to Tanner Scott. But I just don't. I think it is an overreaction to someone that was dominant taking maybe a slight step back. This isn't some precipitous downfall of a reliever.
And I think the main difference I see between Neris and Presley, Neris had very limited closing experience before he came to the Cubs, and he may have done it in Philly a little bit. He didn't do it with the Astros. I mean, he would be the closer on some days when a couple guys were down, but I mean, there's something to be said about Presley having as much experience in the 9th inning as he does. And it's not something we can quantify. You can't look at a number. You can't, quantify it statistically. But there's something to be said for the fact that Presley has been in as tense a situations as you can be in. I mean, he's pitched 45 postseason innings for the Astros, most of which were as the closer. He's been on the mound in the 9th inning of tie games. He's been in the mound in the 9th inning of 1-run games with a lot of stuff on the line in those games, like big stakes. So that'd be my biggest difference is that Ryan Presley, the 9th inning's not going to phase him. And like if he does blow a save or two, like he's done that before. Like it's not one of these things that's going to like crater him. I'm not saying that's the case with Neris, but that was Neris's first time really in about 4 or 5 years as a full-time closer. This will not be that for Presley. I think he'll be able to handle the failures that every reliever experiences during the season. I think he'll be able to handle those really well. And I think there's something to be said for the fact that he was a closer as recently as 12 months ago, and he had done it for 6 years before that. So that'd be my biggest, difference with him, is that, you're getting someone with that bona fide experience, and that's something that you can't replicate. That's something that you can't quantify, that you can't, conjure up in a pitching lab, that you can't,
Right.
overhaul and make. Like, that's just something that just inherently is going to make Presley, I think, stand up and be better in that.
Yeah, and those postseason numbers are really strong, right? Like they're pretty dominant.
It's not a stretch to say he may be, if not in the top 2 or 3, top 5 postseason relievers in Major League Baseball history, and that's not hyperbole. If you go look at the numbers.
Wow.
Chandler, this may be like an elementary question for people who listen to Crush City or read your great work on The Athletic, but like, where's Jim Crane in all of this? I mean, Ryan Presley is one of the most accomplished, one notch below Billy Wagner, maybe in franchise history. Alex Bregman is still out there. And I ask because, the Cubs have an owner who sets a payroll around the same area as the Astros, but very much stays out of it. When they trade Anthony Rizzo, like, well, that's Jed's decision. Or when Alex Bregman is still out there, it's like, well, Jed can do whatever he wants within this confines. Like, where is Jim Crane sort of lurking here? Is he, glad to see Presley go because he wants Bregman more? Or how would you just explain that dynamic generally to people who don't, follow the Astros as closely?
Yeah, this offseason's been just fascinating in terms of like the many different directions that this team has gone. Like, they trade Kyle Tucker to start the offseason. You're like, oh, like they'll take a soft reset, but they'll still contend. Like, they're not gonna tear it down this year, but you may see a little bit lesser of a team. And then they sign Christian Walker, and you're like, oh, okay, like they can, again, kind of going along the lines of, they traded their best player, so. But Christian Walker's a good addition. They want to contend in 2025, but they're not going to go crazy. And then, as Alex Bregman just kind of remains out there, I think the allure of bringing him back has just kind of infiltrated. And they wouldn't be doing this for any other player. Like, if this was literally any other player available, they would not be exploring this. But let's face it, we're past Dana Brown at this point as far as the Bregman stuff goes. Now, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. They've been shopping Ryan Presley since November. Like, this is not like, I think there is a false narrative out there among, maybe people that aren't following it as closely, is that, oh, they saw Alex Bregman was back, so they started shopping Ryan Presley like 3 days ago to clear salary. Like, no, they've wanted to do this since the beginning of the offseason. Like, I reported at the GM meetings in November that they had put him on the block. And it just so happens that it has lined up at the time when Alex Bregman's market is coming to a head. So will it help their pursuit of Bregman that they cleared some of Presley's salary? Yes, it will. They did not trade him solely because they're trying to get Bregman back. As far as, where Jim stands with payroll and everything, the last 2 off seasons I've reported, and it was right at the time, that he had told people that he didn't want to go over the luxury tax, that he did not want to exceed it. Last year, he gave Josh Hader $95 million because he wanted him at the 2023 trade deadline, and they didn't get him, so he wanted him. And Alex Bregman's kind of that same sort of ilk. No one knows Alex Bregman better than the Astros. No one realizes his meaning here more than the Astros, and don't underestimate Jose Altuve's role in this either. How vocal he has been since September to bring him back, I think, has certainly carried some weight. I know there was some disappointment. I think disappointment is putting it mildly. When Dana Brown said in December that negotiations had, quote, stalled with Bregman, there was some disappointment within that clubhouse. And I think that made its way up the chain. And I think that's where we are now. So as far as it's so weird to me to think about how this may look if this happens, because they're setting themselves up. Like, if they do bring Bregman back, and he's on that 6-year deal that's still out there that they offered him, you'll have Bregman for 6 years. You'll have Altuve through 2029. You'll have Yordan Alvarez through 2028. And you'll have Isaac Paredes for the next 3 years. So it's like, you're probably moving Jose Altuve to left field permanently. because this is not something that you can just flip after the season because they have all these guys under control for so long. You can't DH two guys. You're not going to DH Alvarez and Altuve. So it's fascinating. Do they flip Paredes? Like if they sign Bregman, do they try to find another trade partner and trade Isak Paredes for the millionth time in the last 15 months? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's, we are past now. When you start talking about maybe exceeding the luxury tax again, offering that sort of free agent deal to Alex Bregman, we're past Dana Brown. We're now in Jim Crane's wheelhouse, and if he wants something, 99% of the time it gets done.
It's probably worth talking more about Bregman and outside of the Astros as well. I mean, Patrick and I did some reporting a week ago, and it seemed pretty clear that were the Cubs interested? Sure. Bregman makes a lot of sense for the Cubs. I think we've been saying this since they traded for Tucker. Okay, you don't have a third baseman now. Bregman makes all the sense in the world. It's purely about finances, why they're not, doggedly pursuing him. They're not going to go past a certain number on the payroll. They have their budget. It is what it is. And it would just not be realistic in my mind for them to be able to sign him, not for the years he wants and the money he wants. The Cubs are trying to be opportunistic like they always are. It's kind of their mantra. Look for an opportunity where they can find value. If Bregman somehow ends up in that position, maybe they can make something work. I just feel it's a long shot. What have you heard, Chandler, beyond, like, where would you kind of like rank the teams, or maybe that's unfair, but like, what have you heard as far as who's there, what else he has offered to him, and like just the realistic chances of where he could end up?
I mean, what I have heard is that there are 5 teams in, and it's the Astros, the Cubs, the Red Sox, the Tigers, and I'm missing the 5th one. Oh, the Blue Jays. Of course, the Blue Jays are on everyone. I guess it should be noted that like there was a Scott Boras client like a month ago that signed with a random team out of completely nowhere that no one was talking about, with Corbin Burns going to the D-backs. So keep that in mind, that there could always be that team that's lurking that no one's talking about that swoops in and gets it done. There's some reporting out there that he has gotten multiple offers of at least 5 years. I have not been able to independently confirm that. I do know that there are offers. There are other. I have been able to confirm that. I don't know the numbers. I don't know the years, but I have been able to confirm that there are offers out there within reasonable striking distance of the Astros offer. Like, it's not one of these things where I don't believe that the Astros offer is head and shoulders above every other offer he has. I think there are other teams that are in there to the point where if they negotiate and if they get down to the wire, that some of these teams, it would be easy to kind of up it and, get to that point. It's tough for me to look at the Astros as anything but the betting favorite right now, just given what we know, given, how vocal Jose Altuve has been, what Jim Crane usually gets when he puts his mind to something. But it is worth noting that, all at the Astros had their fan fest this weekend, and everyone that we talked to was basically like, oh yeah, it's a long shot. Like, we're in there, but we don't think it's going to happen. And, now, most of the people, Jim Crane did not speak, so this is his call. And if he is okay exceeding the luxury tax for a second straight year, then I think it gets done. I think that it makes a lot of sense. But make no mistake, like you've seen how Alex Cora has basically gushed about Alex Bregman at any opportunity. It's very clear Alex Cora wants him in Boston. The Blue Jays are in a position where they can, for lack of a nicer phrase, be stupid, overpay, give him the big offer that he wants. Don't count out the Tigers with AJ Hinch. And I think something else that I wrote about this in November, but Alex Bregman doesn't want to be in a part of a rebuild. He doesn't want to have where he goes tear it down in a year and a half. And I'm not saying the Astros are going to do that, but like, you kind of start looking at their long-term future. If they're talking about moving Jose Altuve to left field, like what does that say with they think about their system, about what they have coming up. They have nothing. Like they have Cam Smith and that's it. Like coming up. Like they don't have anything. So, and this core is getting older. Jose Altuve is going to be 35. They have Framber Valdez coming up to free agency next year. They're not going to pay him. It's one of these things where like you could very easily envision a scenario where if they start this season as poorly as they started last season, and that like you could really see a thing where this goes off the rails pretty quickly. I don't think it will, but I think there are other teams in on Bregman that can sell him on more long-term sustainable success through the life of his contract. I think the Cubs are one of them. I think the Cubs can certainly make that pitch a lot better than the Astros.
I do think it was interesting, like just a little bit behind the curtain here when we wrote the other day, the Astros and Cubs, in pursuit of Bregman, it was us and Ken Rosenthal, and each of us we had 4 different sources saying the Cubs are in. Now there weren't 4 sources saying Cubs are the favorite or the Cubs are willing to go there in terms of money. In fact, there's a lot of skepticism about that, but I do think it's interesting that the Cubs, I think maybe this is a way to sum it up as Sahadev says, the Cubs are trying to be opportunistic, whereas Jim Crane gets what he wants. And that I think is a huge difference between the Cubs and Astros in this case.
Well, maybe I need to, I don't follow the Cubs on a day-to-day, but like, why are they trading for Kyle Tucker? Why are they trading for Ryan Presley? Why are they doing all this if they're not going in a division where the Cardinals have flat out said they're not trying. The Brewers aren't going to spend money, and like the Pirates are completely
the Pirates.
Yeah, like why not? Like it makes so much
Chandler.
sense.
Yeah, you sound this is, I mean, I think we say this and certainly the fans say this, and I mean the answer is that the payroll, the budget is the budget, and that's what it is. They don't have a top 5 budget in baseball, and they should, but they don't. So that's what it is. So Jed and Carter and the front office have to kind of work within that world, and they can't just I think some people would be like, just go all out for Bregman and don't sign players like Colin Ray and Matthew Boyd or John Birdie. I think they believe they need both, right? They need that depth and they need impact. They got one on the impact side in Tucker. They're clearly not going all out for Bregman. I think it's as simple as the budget. That's the reality of it. You could, if you want to nitpick and say they're not allocating the budget properly, that, we can have that debate. I think it's spend 260 million, not 235 or something like that. Spend 270, because plenty of other teams do. I'm not saying you have to act like the Mets and the Dodgers, but act like the Cubs used to when they won a World Series. But that's I mean, I feel like Patrick and I have been talking about this a lot lately because it's become more and more of a topic, and it's just, you're right. What you're saying, you're absolutely right. I just don't see it changing anytime soon.
I mean, to me, you'd want to parallel, and I'm not saying spend as much money as they do, but like you'd want to parallel the Yankees. And I'm not saying that Kyle Tucker's Juan Soto, but like you have 1 year of Kyle Tucker. You have 1 year of this guy that you gave up a massive piece of your farm system for. Like, why not maximize that 1 year? Especially if from what you're saying, if Alex Bregman ain't going to fit in the budget, Kyle Tucker surely ain't going to fit in the budget. So, like, why not surround Kyle Tucker with? To me, it makes.
I think the hope would be that the budget eventually moves up. We don't have like firm indications that's the case, but this is the budget for 2025. So that Bregman doesn't fit in for 2025 budget. Beyond, I can't say that they won't get to a top 5 payroll ever again. They just haven't been there in how many years has it been, Patrick? 5, 6, which is pretty unacceptable. If you ask me, like you go 2 years without doing that. Okay, I understand. You kind of reset things. I don't completely agree with it, but at least I understand it. This is hard to kind of swallow for fans, and it doesn't make a lot of logical sense in the grand scheme of things outside of, well, the Diamondbacks made the World Series. Oh, the Brewers keep winning. Look at how they do it. How do they keep winning? How does Cleveland keep winning? Tampa Bay. Like if you keep hearing those excuses, then you understand the mentality that you're working with.
Well, thank you, Chandler, for essentially writing a lead for us. In 30 seconds, with this like our 90th episode, in 30 seconds, you summed up everything that's wrong about the Cubs at this moment. And basically the difference, between the Phillies or Braves and the Cubs is essentially Bregman's projected salary, right? Like that's what they're talking about. You're not even saying it has to be Dodgers or Mets, but that's a separator of, sign an all-star third baseman or not. And that's kind of the gap between the Phillies and the Cubs, roughly speaking, in terms of payroll for this year.
And you talk about, look, I mean, you guys talked about earlier, we talked about like that lack of leadership, like that the Cubs have had. Like you sign Alex Bregman, we could do an hour-long podcast about Alex Bregman's leadership qualities and what he has done in Houston. And I'll always go back to what Jose Altuve said in September during his first interview, where he really came out and said that that they needed to keep Alex Bregman. He said this entire organization is better with him in it than it isn't. And I was like, what do you mean? He looked at me and he said, no, the entire organization. It is not just a clubhouse thing. It's not a team. It is like a top to bottom thing that he is, that he's changed, that he has been able to impact. And to me, like that is his biggest selling point to me, is he comes in to any clubhouse and immediately legitimizes it as a championship contender. And look, the power has declined. He's not going to hit 40 homers ever again, I don't think. He doesn't run well. He's had some soft tissue injuries in the past, though he was very durable the last 2 years. Gold Glove defender. His WAR is dirty WAR. He's going to post every day. The defense is going to be great. He's going to get on base. But it's not the sexy 40 homer guy, but I'm telling you, he's going to make some team really, really, really happy, and it may end up being the Astros.
All right. Well, if somehow the Cubs sneak in there and manage that, we'll do that hour-long episode, Chandler. You can just basically become our de facto third co-host. But thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to listen to Crush City with Chandler Rome, our Astros podcast. Make sure to read all our work at The Athletic. Chandler's on top of the Astros. We got your Cubs beat covered. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.